Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cancer Support Community Central Ohio's Natural Living Workshop with community herbalist Lily Cunning. We're greatly appreciative of her volunteering with us and providing this wonderful information, knowledge, and just the expertise that she brings to this workshop. I do ask that if you have a question, you can unmute or you can use the chat button. I will keep an eye on the chat button for Lily. And today's session is natural pet care. And Lily, we're so thankful that you're here, and we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you. Always a pleasure to present for Cancer Support Community. So this is a new topic that I have not taught for Cancer Support Community before, but I wanted to let you know like what my background is in specifically companion animal care, particularly from a holistic bent. So number one, I have been a parrot rescuer for a long time in the San Francisco Bay Area as well as here, a corvid rehabber. I also, when I was in grad school, had a little temporary job at Holistic Hound, which was a cat and dog store run by a homeopath that had all kinds of supplements. I also had an e-commerce store for parrots that had human grade food and enrichments and things like that. And of course, I have a ton of companion animals as well as livestock here on the farm. Um, it is one of the things that I have looked into mainly because it interests me, right? As a holistic practitioner for human beings, I also am called upon from time to time to help companion animals. And I have treated dogs and cats and chickens and all kinds of companion birds. So that's where I'm coming from in this. And we're going to get into a whole broad brushstrokes of topics. And I'm happy to dive deeper on any of them based on the animals that you have in your home and any specific questions that you have. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Everybody see it? Yep. Okay. So we are going to talk about natural pet care. I often use the word companion animal rather than pet, but it's a matter of preference. I am an herbalist by trade. I see people in a clinical setting. I also teach classes, and I formulate for Haven Herbs, which is supporting my time here today. So let's get into it. Today, we're going to cover diet and nutrition, which is the foundation of health and wellness. We're going to talk about movement and activities for companion animals, different kinds of enrichments based on the species, supplements and treatments that you should think about or possibly avoid, and detoxifying and creating a home that is a safe habitat for the animals that you live with. So those are some broad brushstrokes to get through in an hour. Gonna do my best. But I also have particular resources and books that I can recommend based on the species for you to take a deep dive as well. And I'm always available after the fact for questions. Um, so before getting a companion animal, regardless of what kind it is, um, I really would like to encourage you to do the research. Read books about what kind of habitat they live in the wild, if they are wild animals or exotic animals, for example, like a chameleon, um, and what kind of habitat you can provide in your home that would best mimic that, right? So I have a lot of companion birds in my house, right? Parrots and a starling. And so when I started doing that, I tried to figure out, okay, well, my parrots in the dining room are from South America. They're from the Brazilian rainforest, right? So that is a very different habitat than, say, an African gray, which is from the African savanna. Learning about where these birds come from helps me to figure out what kind of enclosure, what kind of activities, how often they bathe, like all of those things. It really does help. With dogs and cats, which are the more common companion animals in the United States, learning about what kind of behaviors dogs and cats have. So, for example, cats really love being up high and being able to survey like a whole area. So, those cat trees, they're more than just fun, they actually help with behaviors and make cats feel more secure and less anxious, being able to see like the whole room and what's happening. For dogs, dogs would naturally live in a den, right? They would sleep in a den, it would be their secure place. Um, and so training a dog to use their crate in that way and having their crate open so that they can take breaks throughout the day, all of these things make your home more suitable for whatever kind of animal that you've decided to spend your life with, right? Also, looking at diets. What kind of food is that particular animal evolved to eat? Because I tell you, there's no kibble in the wild, right? So, like, kibble is a human convenience food. It's kind of like breakfast cereal where you pour it in a bowl and then you can eat it right away. Um, it's the same with, cat and dog kibble. It is a human convenience food, but it may or may not be the best diet for your particular pet. Vet care. One of the things about having animals that aren't dogs and cats in particular is knowing that you have a vet nearby that is qualified to treat that animal. Uh, there are so many different kinds of animals in the world. And not all vets are trained to, if they're a dog and cat vet, they certainly shouldn't be working on horses or birds because they're very different anatomy and physiology, and they may or may not have the ability to do so. Now, in the case of emergency vets, that's a totally different story. Triage is triage. But knowing before you get an animal where they're going to get their vet care and where the 24-hour emergency vet is super important. I keep that stuff on my fridge. That way, when you're in a panic, you know exactly where you're going. Basic husbandry is also really important. Do you need to bathe this animal? How often, would you need to bathe it? Uh, what kind of enclosure, if you have an animal that needs an enclosure, how often should you clean that? And what should you clean with? For example, I have parrots and they are very prone to respiratory toxins. So the kind of cleaning solutions that I use on their cage are very different than what I might use on a urine stain in the carpet. That said, you can find all natural things to deal with urine stains in the carpet that are enzymatic and like eat away at all that nasty. And would not harm other animals in your home. And really doing the research and taking a deep dive on how to clean your home as well as their habitats can be really important. And then, of course, exercise needs. Um, you know, Sometimes there's just not a good match between you and like an animal that you're interested in. For example, folks that work at a desk all day should probably not get an Australian cattle dog. They need to be exercised all the time and they need to have a job to do. But if you are someone who is a groundskeeper, taking your dog with you to work and having them be on adventures all day, that might be a really great solution for an Australian cattle dog and giving them a job. Um, Same with big and little dogs, right? One thing that people may not know is that the really big breeds tend to be more mellow and sedentary than the little breeds, which need a lot more movement and places to go. So finding an animal that actually suits your space and your lifestyle is important to make a good match. And where to obtain holistic supplies, not just cleaning supplies, like I mentioned before, but the kind of food that is appropriate for that animal, especially if it's not just a dog or a cat. Obviously, there are lots of places to get dog and cat supplies, not so much for other types of animals. Um, but doing a Google search, one of the things that is really big in Columbus where y'all are is there's the House Rabbit Society, and they adopt out rabbits that have been spayed or neutered, and they live in homes just like a cat does. They can even use a litter box. But rabbits have very particular needs about what kind of habitat they need, but also they need to constantly chew to wear down their teeth because their teeth keep growing like all rodents. So they need lots of things to shred, which means a lot of cleanup for human beings, just so you know. Rabbits are very cute, also very messy. So before you get an animal, what I'm trying to say is there's so many things to think about. One of my favorite bird husbandry books is written by a board certified avian vet, and it's just Birds for Dummies, that For Dummies series. That is all about husbandry, and it covers all different kinds of birds. So if you're ever interested in getting a bird, I highly recommend Birds for Dummies by Brian Spear. Um, it is a magnum opus, really. He covered everything. So let's get into the specifics, diet and nutrition. So no matter what kind of animal you are talking about caring for, there are three things that you need to think about before you select foods. Number one, it needs to be biologically appropriate for that animal. What you want to do is research evolutionary diets. So cats, let's start with cats because they're very common in a lot of homes. Cats are true carnivores. They do not have the enzymes to break down plant material. One of the reasons why they eat grass is to vomit, right? They eat it in order to upset their stomach so that they can vomit out things because they're feeling bad and they feel like they need to purge. Cats should not have food that has grain in it, and they should not have food that has vegetables or fruit in it. Read the labels. It needs to be a true carnivore diet. Otherwise, you are taking a huge hit on your cat's liver and kidneys. And kibble in particular for cats. Cats mostly in the wild get their moisture from the prey that they eat. They do not drink a ton of water. And in our homes, cats don't often drink water unless it's moving. Like keeping a little trickle on the faucet or getting one of those bubbler waterers, but often they just won't drink. And so if you are feeding a kibble diet to a cat, you need to ensure that that cat is drinking because they're not getting the moisture that they need. And they may be dehydrated, and that takes its toll over a lifetime of kibble eating on the kidneys. And there is an epidemic in the United States of cats when they reach 14, 15, 16 dying of kidney failure. And that is why. Kibble is a human convenience food, and I get it, right? My dogs eat some kibble. They eat a grain-free kibble, but I also ameliorate that with other things because I know that that is for my convenience and not necessarily for their nutrition. Um, so cats. Cats do best on a carnivorous diet that doesn't just include muscle like we eat, but also includes organ meat and bone. Um, One of the things that is present in bones is taurine, which is essential for cats. And so, because cooked meat no longer has that amino acid in it, they often add taurine back into like those little cans or into the kibble because cats absolutely need taurine. If you're feeding a wet food diet to your cat that is cooked, just make sure it has supplemental taurine in it. It should, but there are no regulations. That's the thing you should know. In the United States, there's no regulations around pet food. And I'll get into that when we talk about additives and non-foods. So really, you have to be an educated consumer, read labels, and know exactly what you're feeding animals. So biologically appropriate food. Cats do best on a raw carnivorous diet. And a lot of the raw foods that are formulated specifically for cats have ground up bone meal in it and include organ and muscle meat. Um, When I was working at the Holistic Hound, we had a whole freezer full of raw cat diets that people could purchase, and then you just thaw out a little bit at a time to give to your cat. Um, you can also feed cans, but again, just make sure it has the added taurine in it. And I prefer that over kibble for cats any day, just because of the fact that they don't drink very much. Now, dogs are scavengers evolutionarily. They pretty much eat anything. And if you've ever had a dog, you know that that is true. Um, I have a dog that is picky and a dog that is not picky enough and will eat things that are not food, like rocks. Um, so biologically appropriate food for a dog is much easier, right? They eat carrion in the wild. They have gut flora that helps them eat all kinds of nasty things. They eat their own poop. It's dogs are gross. I have dogs, I love dogs, but dogs are gross. Um, So the thing that they cannot really process very well, they do not have the enzymes to do so, is grain. And often, if you have a dog that is getting what are known as hot spots, little areas that they scratch a lot, they're itchy, and then they get sores. That's because of grain, usually in a diet. Usually, the hot spots that you see in dogs are related to diet, and grain is the number one reason. So, if you have a dog that is prone to those, particularly those seem to manifest as the dog gets more active in the warm months, um, definitely look at eliminating grain from their diet. And there's a ton of grain-free options out there, both in kibble and in cans. Like if you shop one of the big stores like Chewy, where they deliver to your house, you can actually apply that filter and just only look at those options. It makes it really easy. Um, Biologically appropriate food for other types of animals. Birds vary wildly in what kind of diet they are meant to eat. Lories are nectar eaters, so nectar, pollen, and flowers, right? Parrots tend to eat lots of fruit, as well as nuts, and they're opportunistic, so sometimes they'll eat bugs as protein. So you just need to think about how you're going to mimic the essentials that they need in their diet. For my parrots, they sometimes get hard-boiled eggs. They get lots of fruits and vegetables. Parrots can totally eat grain, and seed, right? But they shouldn't eat all seed, right? So a lot of people think, oh, bird seed. But the fact is that most birds should not eat only seed. And when we supplement outdoor birds with their seed, that's a supplement, right? It gives them high fat, dense nutrition, but it's not what they eat on the regular. It's a supplement. For parrots and other birds indoors, you want to look for a diet that balances the kind of nutrition that they need. And again, Birds for Dummies is a really great book, and will tell you like the different types of birds and what they need and what is an appropriate food. And if folks have questions about a specific kind of animal that they are looking to feed, please let me know. I'm happy to answer questions. But the next thing that you need to look at when you're talking about diet nutrition, and I'm going to spend quite a bit of time talking about food because it is the foundation of good health for all animals, including human beings, is you want to make sure that the additives that are in the food are actually food. um, and that your food is being manufactured in a place that has some quality control. There have been big food recalls in the pet food world of things being manufactured in China, and there were toxins in those foods. There was a whole recall of multiple brands that were being produced out of a factory, and they were adding melamine to the food, which is a plastic, a forever chemical, because it made the protein analysis spike higher, but it was killing animals. Um, so what you need to do is make sure that A, you trust the brand and you know where they manufacture. Number two, that any additives in there are safe for the animals. So, for example, a lot of brands have eliminated the preservative ethoxyquin. Ethoxyquin was put in there to make sure that uh, formulas that contain some oil don't go rancid, which worthy, right? But let's quicken the supply chain so that oils don't go rancid rather than using chemicals that actually cause liver failure. Um, and the other thing is putting non-foods in the food. And again, I go back to the biologically appropriate. If there are ingredients in your food that seem healthy but aren't biologically appropriate, that is non-food in your animal's food. So, um, looking at all the labels and just buying the same things over and over is a good way of making sure that you're giving your animal a biologically appropriate diet. I accidentally bought a case of cat food cans that contained blueberries. And I was like, blueberries? Why? And I know that that manufacturer was trying to get a balance of vitamins and antioxidants and things, but you don't do it through blueberries for a cat. They don't have the enzymes to break down blueberries. There's all kinds of weird shelf stabilizers in pet food. There are byproducts. If you look at your label and it doesn't just say chicken, it says chicken byproducts, um, chances are it's not a high quality food, because there's no regulation on the quality of the ingredients that go into pet food. There's human grade food, and then everything else is feed grade. And this gets fed to pets, it gets fed to livestock, and there are no regulations. And feed grade food is not fit for human consumption. And you have to ask yourself why. Why is this corn not fit for human consumption? It's corn, right? And we eat all kinds of corn, whether it's sweet corn or flint corn made into tortillas or chips. There is something inherently wrong with that corn, right? It was either grown with a whole bunch of toxic herbicides and pesticides and is not fit for human consumption, or it has been discovered that it is moldy on the cobs, but they go ahead and they use it in pet food. And again, those spores can live in food for quite some time, even after processing. Um, feed grade food is problematic. So one of the other filters that I look for when I'm searching for pet food is it human grade? Because honestly, it's not that much more expensive to go with a manufacturer that uses human grade ingredients rather than feed grade, um, and eliminating grain, for example. So again, be a label reader. And then the other thing to think about after you've looked at biologically appropriate diets and you've read the label and you've made sure that everything in there makes sense for the animal that you're trying to feed, is that it's nutritionally balanced. And again, just doing a little bit of research on, okay, what do cats need in their diet every day? And then looking at the label and saying, oh, yeah, this actually meets their nutrition needs. For dogs, because they're scavengers, you can actually feed a lot more fruits and vegetables to dogs than you could to cats because cats can't process it. But like half of the food that I feed my dogs is chopped up vegetables and fruit along with their meat. They can also eat sweet potatoes. They love sweet potatoes and carrots. Um, and so they get those. They're good for them. It's less expensive than buying 100% carnivore diet, which dogs do not absolutely need. They eat all kinds of things in the wild, and it's healthy for them. So considering biologically appropriate, reading labels, and making sure it's nutritionally balanced, no matter what kind of animal it is, are the ways to move forward with diet and nutrition. And again, just listening to marketing rather than doing the research and reading labels um, can end up causing problems down the road. So for me, I like to make sure that my cats and dogs aren't going to have end of life problems that were caused by diet. And like I said, kidney failure is a huge problem in cats because of kibble. Cancer is also something that has an end of life cause after a lifetime of bad diets. And then there's also liver failure. So most of these are nutritional. Any questions about diet before we move on?
There's nothing in the chat.
Okay, moving on. Movement and activities. So just like in human beings, diet and exercise, right? Two big things that make a creature healthy. You got to make their life the best possible. And so making sure their enclosures or where they spend most of their time is conducive to movement and activities. I have two dogs that live upstairs with me here. And, we got the second dog for the first dog, actually, because he was not moving around enough. They're pack animals. He needed to play more. He wouldn't ask to play with us. And, we get busy with our everyday lives, working and doing things. So we got a second dog for our dog, and now they play. However, they're playing in the common space, and sometimes that is challenging, right? Like we have a pretty big sized house, but they're knocking into things. Yesterday we had broken glass. It was really not great. So thinking about how your home is set up, and is it conducive for the animals that you have? Lesson for me, right? Lost my nice little glass bowl. But making sure that they have space to move and do the things that they're going to do, and enriching their lives with certain kinds of activities. All of the animals that we bring into our homes play. They play in different ways, and for you to know your animal and what it likes to do is important. For example, cats, most of the play that they do is mimicking hunting, right? They like to catch things, destroy them, like toss them around. And if you've ever seen a cat hunt a mouse, that is exactly what they do. They play with that poor mouse until it's gone. But they need to do that. It is a drive. Oh, look at that. Oh my gosh, I am annoyed that I did not delete that text. So anyway, the importance of play is super important. Playing with your animals and making sure that they have enrichments that will encourage their play, super important. You need to replace those wild behaviors so that they don't do inappropriate things like break glass bowls, right? My parrots, for example, they get out every day, multiple times a day. They get to fly around. The other predator animals are sequestered when that happens. I create a safe environment. There are places for them to land around. They get to play with me. They get to play with each other. They get to exercise. And the other thing that I do is I encourage foraging behavior. So for parrots, we know that they forage 6 to 8 hours a day in the wild. It is something that takes up most of their time. And if they don't have that ability, if they just get all their food in a little dish, they get bored, they get depressed, they don't have enough to do. And so one of the things that I like to do is to sequester their food. I hide it in toys. I wrap it up that they have to unwrap it. I hide it in different places around their enclosure. I buy them foraging toys, which are puzzles that they have to figure out how to get to that food. Super important. Same thing with dogs and cats. You can buy foraging enrichments for dogs and cats that keep them busy when you are not in their space interacting with them. And, that is one kind of enrichment that is universal, foraging enrichments. The other kind is shreddable enrichments. For parrots in particular, they need to move those beaks, they need to rip things up. So I provide all kinds of wood and palm and vine and all kinds of things for them to rip up because they need to do that. And if they don't have an outlet for that, guess what's happening? Your furniture and your baseboards are getting ripped up. So, you replace those wild behaviors in a appropriate way for your home. Making sure that dogs get out and they're able to run, right? I take my dogs to the dog park every week, and they also go to doggy daycare, which is an enclosed acreage, and they get to run around in a pack and like play with each other. Um, Super important to get that exercise and that enrichment with other animals. Dogs are pack animals. If they live by themselves, you are their pack. So they need to interact with you all the time or they're going to be anxious and or depressed. So movement and activities. So the kind of enrichments that you can think about to create a fulfilling life for your animal. I mentioned foraging, searching for food. That actually is one of the most fulfilling activities for a companion animal to have, regardless of the species. Make them look for it. Cats and dogs have really good sniffers. Make it so that they can smell it, but they have to go find it. And they'll be super excited that they found something that maybe you didn't know about. Um, and have fun with it. Same with parrots. They don't smell, but they are constantly playing around with things with their beak. And if they discover all of a sudden, oh my gosh, there's food in here, what a great reward. Make it a jackpot kind of food. Like for my birds, I'll give them a nut that's hidden, and they love nuts because they're high fat, lots of protein, and normally they're getting like fruits and vegetables, so it's kind of a jackpot reward for them foraging, and I want to get them doing different things. My birds also have a toy box, right? It's a bowl that is a really big bowl, but I put all kinds of toys in there that they get to throw around, that they get to chew on. That's an enrichment that encourages that destructive behavior in a focused way that is acceptable to the human beings in the house. um my dog Anna, she rips up everything. She loves stuffed animals. She will eviscerate them and put all the stuffing everywhere, and then we're constantly picking it up and vacuuming. She rips apart rope toys. She's just a destructive dog. I have to buy lots of toys for her because she rips them up, and then if I don't give her more, she's ripping up rugs, she's ripping up furniture. It's just an outlet that she needs. And so I am constantly buying those enrichments for that particular dog. My other dog, not so much, could care less about toys. Um, Likes to sleep a lot. Social activities. So especially if your animal is a pack animal or a flock animal, they need social interaction to be healthy and happy. And emotional wellness is a part of the whole package, right? When we become caregivers to an animal, we are responsible for their physical well-being and we are responsible for their emotional well-being. So social activities are a really big deal. And for example, I play with my animals, I interact with them, I give them affection. We go to the park with the dogs. My cat is literally right next to me, sleeping in a basket. It's her favorite thing to do. She likes ambient attention. Right now, she's curled up in a ball, possibly sleeping, but every so often I just come and I like reach out and I pet her and she purrs, right? That's what she likes. With my birds, they get out every morning. We play fun and games. Every other morning, we take a bath together because bathing for parrots is a social flock activity. So is eating. It's more than just getting clean or getting food. It is a social bonding activity that shows that we are all together, that we all love each other, that we take care of each other, and it makes them less anxious. So I have a perch installed in my bathtub. They sit on it. I take a shower. Then I wet them. I put them under the shower. They get all wet. They hang out on the perch until we're done in the bathroom, and then they sun themselves. Their cage enclosure is near a window, and so they sit in the morning sun and dry off while we're doing stuff in the dining room together. Those social activities are super important. They also get out for dinner, right? And they eat off of our plates. And that's not for everyone. Some people would rather have like a little bird perch that the bird stays on with a food cup there while everybody's eating. But the point is to eat together. That is a bonding activity that will increase emotional wellness. And of course, their habitat should have enrichments. In the case of my birds, they're in a cage for several hours a day, right? So there needs to be all different kinds of perches for them to be on so that their feet get lots of exercise and it's not all the same like dowel perches. They need toys, they need things to chew up, they need to have different views. I put on music for my birds every day and they screech along. I would not call it melodic singing in any way, but they are enjoying the music. And if I forget, they will tell me. They'll screech at me and I'll be like, what? And they'll say music. And I'll be like, oh right. So then I'll start the Google to do the music. And they have their favorites too. The thing that happens when you interact and you enrich their lives is you find out so much more about your animals. My parrots in the dining room love Mozart's The Magic Flute. That is their favorite. And especially the Night Queen aria, they will whistle that tune over and over and over again. And sometimes they'll ask for it. They'll start whistling it and I'll be like, okay, I'll play that one. Um, but creating a habitat that is not just an enclosure, but something that enriches their life is super important. For my dogs, 2 crates open all day in the living room so that they can take their naps and they can like take a little time out for themselves. Uh, they have bells on the door that they can ring when they need to go out and tell us that they need to use the bathroom. We take them to the dog park. And we've created beds and things for all the animals in the home. And my little kitty has a tower that she can just watch the dogs play when they're being obnoxious, out of harm's way, right? Out of the fray, because she doesn't like that. But I've created a habitat that works for the animals as well as the humans in the house. So that is another thing that is super important to do when you're setting up your home. Any questions about enrichments? I know I'm going over a lot of things and we're past the halfway point. So let's talk about supplements and treatments. First, let's talk about flea and tick care. One thing you should know about flea and tick care, like the spot treatments that you put on the back of the neck, for example, what are some of those names? Revolution and I forget all the names. One thing you should know is that they are neurotoxins, and not all animals do well with those being applied. I've known many dogs and cats to have seizure disorders from getting those treatments. So there are other ways to deal with flea and tick care that are a little bit more healthy than applying a neurotoxin. So one of my favorite, and it's in the resources, and I'm going to have this emailed to you after this session so that you have it. One of my favorite companies for flea and tick care is called Earth Animal, and they have a daily powder that you just add to their food, and it is ingredients that are healthy for that animal, and it is a repellent for blood-sucking insects, right? For dogs, I recommend the herbal one. It's a green powder that you just mix into their food. They totally eat it because they're dogs. And it bitters the blood and makes them unappealing to parasitic insects. It works really well and it's super healthy for them. For cats, there is a yeast-based formula, nutritional yeast, that works really well to, again, do the same thing, but you mix it into their food every day and it's just a daily powder. That's my favorite way. There are other ways too. And bathing with just plain old soap and a flea comb is the best way to rid yourself of fleas rather than using a toxic treatment. We talked about nutrition, but let's talk about hairball remedies. There are all natural hairball remedies for cats. So what hairball remedies do is they sort of lubricate the digestive tract so that instead of vomiting up a hairball, which can be traumatic for the cat, but also gross, is they have it slide on through. And so it gets pooped out. rather than coughed up. So a lot of hairball remedies like Petramalt, which is pretty much an older brand that's been around for a long time, those are petrochemicals that have flavorings in them. Basically, you're feeding your cat Vaseline, which I do not recommend. I don't recommend petrochemicals as food supplements. There are hairball remedies that are very similar. They come in a tube and you squeeze them out and the cat licks them off your finger, that are not petrochemicals. And I would just start reading your labels. And you can always, if you're looking online, Google, natural hairball remedy. And that should come up. And again, just read the ingredients. Litter, cat litter. One of the things to know about clay cat litters, which is the most common in the United States, is that, it's cheap, and it's cheap for a reason. A lot of these clays are baked not in kilns, but in incinerators where people are burning garbage or toxic waste. It's a way to make more money and have different revenue streams rather than just selling a clay litter. And it's bad for your cat. So, I don't use clay litters because it's very difficult to know exactly where they were manufactured, because the address that's on and the name of the company on the bag is always just the corporate headquarters. So I don't use clay litters. There are lots of different kinds of litters. The one that I use in my home is walnut hulls. It's ground up walnut hulls. It is clumpable, just like a scoopable litter is, that is clay. But it's all natural, and it has the benefit of, as an herbalist, I knew this. Black walnut hulls are naturally what we call a vermifuge. They kill worms, right? So when you have a litter box that is filled with a vermifuge, if they have tapeworms, A, they're dying and they can't re-ingest them, but B, that clumpable litter inevitably sometimes gets into their digestive tract anyway. They get it in their paws, they lick their paws, things like that. It's actually a natural vermifuge. And so you're keeping your cat well rather than potentially harming your cat by using clay litters. There's also a bunch of other kinds, but again, knowing the process by which they are made and trusting the company and what they say is their process, and how, if they talk about their process. If they don't talk about their process, I don't bother with them. But if they speak to their process, really paying attention to that is important. I know it seems like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about what they're pooping in. But again, they're in there multiple times a day. They're exposing themselves and digging things up and potentially breathing in anything that gets kicked up. So it is important. Odor removers, I tend to use enzymatic ones for accidents on the carpet or cleaning up anything yucky. They're all natural. The enzymes tend to destroy any protein sequences that end up being smelly and gross, and are all natural. And it's fine if they accidentally lick up some of it. So I tend to use that. The brand that I currently use, I buy it in bulk because I have a bunch of animals. But it's from a company called Azure Standard, which is sort of a bulk food and product company where you can buy like beans in bulk, and you can buy, grit for your chickens in bulk, and you can buy these cleaners in bulk. And all their cleaners are 100% green and non-toxic. So I tend to buy it from them. Excuse me. Um, Having all kinds of essentials to help your animals adapt to their area, rather than having to take extremes to make them suitable. For example, cats need to scratch. They need to scratch not only to remove the outer hulls of their nails as they grow, but also to stretch their muscles. It is something that needs to happen to keep them well. They're really good at climbing trees. So your scratching post could be part of the cat furniture, or if they prefer to do it low, getting them like a little cardboard box. Those things are super important, again, for enrichment purposes and anxiety relief. Um, and if you have a naturally anxious animal, and I've adopted all my animals from rescues, so sometimes that comes with the package, learning about what herbs and supplements help relieve anxiety in that particular animal is really important. And it's not universal across for humans. So if you have a question about anxiety relief in a specific kind of animal, please ask. I am happy to answer questions. For example, um, dogs cannot consume CBD. CBD and cannabis products almost paralyze a dog. It can be very upsetting. Like I've seen dogs with cannabis poisoning, and usually it's just keep them confined to a bed for 6 to 8 hours, and they tend to get better depending on the severity of how much they've ingested or breathed in. I would keep all cannabis products away from your dog. Make sure that they're nowhere near it. Um, so thinking that you could give a CBD treat to your dog for anxiety, definitely not, do not recommend. But there are herbs that could help with dog anxiety, and I'm happy to answer those questions, whether it's in this webinar or you can email me. Um, Making sure that there are all kinds of basic husbandry care that you've thought of. That you have a carrier on standby in case there's a fire, that you have dental care and dental products lined up for your dogs. Like I give them chewy dental treats for my dogs. For my cat, because I'm not feeding kibble, um, her teeth are great. The number one cause of tartar buildup in dogs and cats is feeding a kibble-based diet, which leads to you needing to get the treatment. Now, some people can do that treatment without anesthesia, but many times, depending on your animal or depending on your vet, they will require anesthesia, which is always risky. Why do it if you don't have to? So I recommend making sure that if you do feed kibble to your dogs, that every so often you give them a raw, meaty bone. Not a cooked bone, but a raw one, because A, it will help remove some of that tartar, and B, the enzymes on that raw bone will actually help dissolve the tartar. Um, if you feed a
What
raw
was
diet, you don't need to worry about that.
what was the dog dental? What did you say?
So I was saying that the number one reason why dogs and cats need dental work, like tartar removal, is because of a lifetime of kibble consumption.
Gotcha.
So if you do feed kibble, I highly recommend feeding a raw meaty bone from time to time so that they can remove that tartar themselves, as well as, have those enzymes to break down smaller things. But if you feed a raw diet, you don't necessarily have to worry about the tartar buildup. The thing about tartar removal is that it sometimes requires general anesthesia, depending on the severity
Mm.
of the buildup and also the comfort of the vet or vet tech that is doing the work. And anytime you expose any animal, human or non, to anesthesia is risky. So I would like to avoid it if possible. So that's what I do is because some of my dogs eat some kibble as well as other things, I give them raw bones from time to time. When they get to go outside in their dog run, that's when I give it to them so it doesn't make a mess in my house because it is messy.
Thank you.
um, yeah, so and making sure that your animals are up to date on their vet care, on their vaccinations, that they have collars that identify you, not just with tags, but like I had my dog's name and my phone number embroidered into the collar because tags can get ripped off, when they're roughhousing. I've found tags in my house and I'm like, I gotta rebend this and get this on there, like their license or whatever. But if you have contact information embedded in the collar, that's super helpful. I also highly recommend microchipping and making sure that the data on your microchip account is up to date. If you move, you have to make sure that, you know, your address is up to date, and make sure that you have the same phone number and email on your account. So all of these things are super important when you're talking about natural pet care. Getting regular grooming if your animal needs that, brushing. I'm a big fan of a brush called the Furminator, which gets the undercoat. A lot of surface brushes only get the surface, but if you get something like the Furminator, and there are other brands, I just don't know their names, that get the undercoat, you would be amazed at how much hair comes out, especially in these transition times. Grooming your cat or dog are super important as the weather starts changing from warm to cold and vice versa, because they have a coat that, you know, gets thicker in the cold, and then they start shedding. And that will also save you a lot more vacuuming if you're regularly brushing your animal. Making sure that you keep their nails trim. Cats usually can do it on their own with scratching posts, but dogs, unless they're constantly on cement or rocks, which usually dogs are not, um, they're going to have their nails trimmed. I always teach my animals to hold their paw up and hold steady so that I can do it. And I, you know, reinforce that that is a good behavior, so that I can do it at home and I don't have to make a vet appointment, which, you know, just delays the process. It gets very uncomfortable when claws or talons get overgrown. I have to do it for my parrots too. Um, so making sure that you have those supplies on hand. And for birds in particular, because they are so lightweight, having a gram scale is super important, and knowing that regularly weighing them and making sure that they are a healthy weight, because just picking them up sometimes they could lose 5 grams and you may not even notice. Um, and you know, that is a substantial amount of weight for a bird. So having the right equipment in your home to holistically care for your animals from start to finish is really important. Let's talk about having a safer home. So the design that you choose for your layout is important. Pet proofing is important. These are my 2 parrots in my dining room, Tengu and Tallulah. We have it set up so that there is a curtain that I draw between the dining room and the kitchen, so that they do not fly into the kitchen where it is unsafe for them to be. They have run of the dining room and the living room while the dogs are crated or outside, and the cat is put into the master suite. Um, you want to make sure that your house plants are not toxic for your pets. There are plants that are very common, that are not good for animals to chew on. One of them in the holidays is poinsettias, right? We want to make sure that they are out, if you're going to have them, that they are out of the reach of your dog or cat. You also want to make sure mirrors and windows are clear to birds that you have in your home so that they don't fly into them and hurt themselves. Cookware and appliances, non-stick cookware, PTFE, PFOA, all of those coatings, Teflon, are toxic, not only to your animals, but to you. They are carcinogens. Replacing them with cast iron, stainless steel, copper, Pyrex, there's a number of options that you can use, are much better. And getting rid of appliances that have non-toxic coatings, or not non-toxic, non-stick coatings, there we go, is important. Waffle irons, toasters. We don't want to contaminate the air, because our animals are going to suffer first. We definitely take a toxic load when we use nonstick cookware, or we use the self-cleaning option on our stove. That also creates toxic air in your home. We just don't see those effects until later. But, you know, I thank my birds in particular, because they are so susceptible to airborne toxins. I've purged my home of a lot of toxic chemicals and appliances because I have birds in my home. And while it seems like a huge undertaking, the fact is that you're going to be healthier for it too. So I really thank them for making that something that I took the initiative to do. Um, Fragrances, plugins, candles, essential oils, most of these are not helpful to your companion animals. The plugins are just petrochemicals. I would just get rid of them altogether. Febreze, and other things like it, they don't actually remove odors. They actually deaden the nerves in your nose, Glade, all of that stuff. All it is dulling your senses rather than actually taking care of odors. The way that you take care of odors in your home is you clean the source of the odor and remove it. Um, Candles are not safe for most animals. Definitely don't leave them unattended. And if you do burn candles in your home while your animals are contained or safe, make sure that they're all natural. Most wicks of candles contain heavy metals, unless otherwise specified. Paraffin wax is a petrochemical. Essential oils, while they are biologically sourced, many of them are not safe for animals, depending on the botanical, and none of them are safe for a home with cats. Cats bathe themselves by licking themselves, and again, they don't have the enzymes to break down plant material. So I do not diffuse essential oils in my home. If I'm going to use essential oils, I will roll it directly onto my skin. But I do not use inhalation methods since I have cats. And cleaning supplies. Again, looking at what is on the list of ingredients will make a difference in eliminating toxics in your home. Here are some resources that I love. I mentioned Earth Animal originally for that flea and tick powder. They also have other supplements. They might even have a hairball supplement that you could try. Amber Naturals is a company that makes pet remedies. The one that they make for kennel cough and parvo in particular, super effective, more effective than most vet treatments. When I was working at the Holistic Hound, I discovered them, and their Parvade, which I think is now called Paxaid, um, had an 85% success rate, and the vet protocols were much less than that. So if you have a puppy that ends up getting parvo, I highly recommend Amber Naturals. They're also really great for their kennel cough formula. Pet
Lily,
Supplies Plus, they have them in Columbus. They have a ton of really great natural foods. Again, read the labels because they carry a wide gamut of pet food and supplements, but read, and they do have a variety. There's a lot of Pet Supplies Plus in your area. There are some online places that I love, like Natural Pet Warehouse or Big Apple Herp, which is for reptiles and amphibians. The Bird Safe Store is a really great online store to get bird safe food and toys and enrichments. And that last link there, the ABVP, is the American Board of Veterinary Practitioners. If you are looking for a vet specialist, someone who is certified in an animal that maybe is uncommon, like most vets are trained to treat dogs and cats. They're not necessarily trained to treat livestock, bigger animals, exotics. And so what I have done is I go to ABVP and I search for my geographic area to find someone who's certified in a specific practice. And there are different certifications. There's avian, there's exotic, there's livestock. If you want a specific vet so that you know your animal is getting the right care, that's the place to go.
Lily, we
I will
do.
give you the reason that I seek out a bird vet for my birds is that they go through their veterinary practice, they get their license, they take all their tests, and then in order to become certified in avian practice, they practice for 6 years. They submit case studies. They take tests specifically on that species that they want to get certified in before they are allowed to be ABVP certified. And that goes for the other animal types too. I would much rather take my bird to a certified avian vet than someone who's like, oh yeah, I can treat birds.
Lily,
So
we do have a
that's what
question.
I do. Yeah, what's the
We
question?
have a question in the chat, and and she shared that she rescued a pit dog and she was very severely abused. She
Yeah.
has regressed some since her person's cancer journey. She prefers to isolate, needs ideas for calming her gently and naturally. Any herbal help? She did get her dog a thunder shirt.
Oh yeah, thunder shirts are great. I have a dog that is very susceptible to nervous anxiety when it comes to thunderstorms or fireworks. So I highly recommend those. In terms of supplements, there are calming supplements. Dr. Good Pet is a good brand to start with. Most of those are liquids that you can put in a little bit of water and have them drink that. They also make chewable treats that are really great for calming. Dr. Good Pet, the Amber Naturals has some really great things. So does Earth Animal. I like to get uh, from companies that I know, but also that are formulated specifically for pets, not only because of the formula, but because it's palatable, right? They make it so that the pet wants to eat it, because the most effective remedy is one that they're actually going to take, right? If you have to force it down their throat, it only adds to the anxiety that they're already experiencing, right? So having something that tastes like meat or, tastes like a sweet potato, something that they like is super important. So I would check out those first two. And again, I'm going to send this along to Darlene later today so that you have all these resources. All right. And this is me and Haven. If you are interested in consultations or classes or just ready to go, remedies, tonics, and body care for humans, this is where you go. I think we're at time, aren't we? Oh, we're over. I'm so sorry.
That's okay, Lily. You had such a wealth of information to share, and we greatly appreciate that. So thank you so very much for today. Please plan, everybody, to come back and join us on March 26th, because Lily will be doing Natural Living Workshop again, and this time the topic will be planning a medicinal garden. So
Yay.
Lily, again, thank you so very much, and we will look forward to seeing everybody in March.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Have a great week.